The man who loved me twice and betrayed me both times. The blade slid between my ribs as easily as breath. The cold steel stole my warmth, and for a heartbeat I could only stare into the gray eyes I had once thought held the world. Kaelin's hands trembled against the hilt of his sword. His face, usually carved from stone, was pale, drawn, haunted. "Forgive me," he whispered, voice cracking like the blood oath symbols shattering around us. This was the only way. I felt my body sag against him as my legs gave out. Warmth, my own blood, spread across my tunic. The cavern walls, carved with ancient blood magic, seemed to pulse with dying light. The scent of ash and copper filled my lungs. And in that final moment, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stared at him, at the man who had loved me, who now let me die on his blade. Darkness claimed me. And then, light. I gasped, sucking in air like it was the first breath I'd ever taken. The taste of blood was gone, replaced by the crisp tang of morning fog. My fingers clawed at stone beneath me. Cold, rough. My heart thundered in my chest, wild and unsteady. I opened my eyes to find the world unfamiliar, yet heartbreakingly known. The training yard. I was in the training yard. Gray stone stretched beneath me in neat slabs, damp with dew. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon, and mist clung low, swirling around the boots of other trainees. I could hear the soft thud of wooden practice swords, the bark of an instructor. The world felt too loud, too bright, too alive. I lifted shaking hands to my chest. No blood, no wound, just the soft fabric of the Academy's novice tunic, too large on my 16-year-old frame. 16. Gods. I was 16 again. My breath came faster, ragged, as I tried to steady the storm inside me. My mind raced with memories. No, warnings. 7 years ahead, Kaelin's blade would find my heart. 7 years ahead, I would stand in that cursed chamber, bound by blood, betrayed by love. Lyra! Someone called. I jerked my head up. The voice, smooth, familiar, hated and beloved in equal measure, slid over me like silk over a fresh wound. Kaelin. He strode across the yard, wooden practice sword slung over his shoulder, dark hair untamed and windblown. His tunic hung open at the neck, revealing the curve of his throat, where I once loved to press my lips. His gray eyes sparkled with lazy amusement, as if the world were his for the taking. And he smiled at me, that same easy, confident smile that had once made me feel safe. I froze. The world tilted, and for a breath, I saw not the boy striding toward me but the man who would kneel over my dying body. He loved me, I thought, my nails digging into my palms. He killed me, and now he smiles at me like nothing ever happened. "Are you all right?" Kaelin asked, crouching beside me. Concern flickered across his face. Genuine, I might have thought, if I didn't know the end of this story. I managed a nod, swallowing down the hurricane of emotions clawing at my throat. I'm fine. He offered me a hand, an instinct warred with memory. I hesitated a fraction too long before taking it. His grip was strong, warm, just like I remembered, just like I'd tried to forget. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he teased lightly, pulling me to my feet. Did the instructor's glare finally get to you? If only he knew. I forced a smile, the muscles in my face stiff from disuse. Something like that. Kaelin grinned, and for a moment, the past and future collided in his eyes. And I realized I had 7 years before the blade. 7 years to change the ending. 7 years to decide, would I save him from becoming my executioner, or would I make sure that when the time came, it was his heart the blade found? I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my narrow bed, my hands clenched in the thin blanket, knuckles white. The room was the same as I remembered, plain stone walls, a battered wooden desk pushed beneath the window, the scent of old ink and lavender lingering from the last student who occupied the space. Outside, the garden rustled softly in the breeze, moonlight glinting off the leaves, but nothing felt the same. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kaelin's face, First the boy who had smiled at me in the training yard, then the man who had driven his sword into my chest. My throat ached as if I'd been screaming, though I hadn't made a sound. I couldn't. The weight of my own fury sat like a stone on my chest. How could I have been so blind? How could I have loved him so deeply, trusted him so completely, only to die by his hand? And yet, hadn't I loved him still, even as the world went dark? I pressed my palms to my eyes, willing the memories to stop, but they didn't. They never would. I was a girl again, 16, unscarred, unbroken, but my soul was older, burned by betrayal. The dawn crept in pale and quiet. The academy came to life around me, the soft shuffle of feet in the halls, the clatter of armor as the first trainees rose for drills. I forced myself to move, to stand, to breathe like I hadn't just lived through my own death. My legs trembled as I crossed to the desk. The mirror above it caught my reflection. I stared at the girl who looked back. Wide brown eyes, too pale skin, hair a tangled mess around my face. A girl I barely recognized. I won't be her again, I whispered. I won't be that fool. By mid-morning, I made my way to the academy's library, seeking refuge among the ancient scrolls and the scent of worn parchment. The place hadn't changed, high shelves heavy with knowledge, dust motes dancing in shafts of light that streamed through narrow windows. The floorboards creaked underfoot, a familiar song. I needed to think. I needed to plan. But every strategy I formed unraveled beneath the weight of my heart. Lyra? I stiffened at the voice and turned. Sitting at a table near the window was Saren. His blonde hair caught the sunlight, turning it to gold. His eyes, warm and brown, crinkled at the corners as he smiled. That same easy, open smile that had always made me feel safe. Gods, I had missed him. Saren, I said, my voice hoarse. He rose and crossed to me in 2 long strides. Are you all right? You look pale. Did Kaylin's teasing get to you? His concern was real, untainted by politics or duty. I wanted to crumble beneath it, to let him carry my sorrow for a while, but I couldn't. I wouldn't. I'm fine, I lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. Saren studied me a moment longer, then nodded. You never were a good liar, you know? I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I looked away, out the window, where the distant woods loomed beyond the academy grounds. You're going on the hunt tomorrow, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He tilted his head. Yes. The annual trial. Why? My heart clenched. In my first life, that hunt had been his end. A trap set by rival nobles. A trap I hadn't seen until it was too late. Don't go, I said, sharper than I meant to. Saren blinked. What? Just don't. Something will go wrong. Stay behind. Please. He frowned, confusion clouding his kind eyes. Lyra, what's this about? You're scaring me. I opened my mouth, then shut it. How could I explain? That I'd seen him die? That I'd held his broken body in my arms? No. He would never believe me. Call it a feeling, I managed. Please, Saren. Trust me. He hesitated. Then, to my relief, nodded slowly. All right, I'll tell the master I'm unwell. But you'll tell me what's going on, won't you? I nodded, though I had no idea how I'd ever find the words. That night, back in my room, I undressed by the dim light of the moon and caught sight of my reflection again. I froze. On my chest, over my heart, faint but unmistakable, were the scars of the blood oath. Thin lines like silver threads, forming the ancient sigils of binding. They shouldn't have been there. Not yet. Not in this life. My breath hitched, panic clawing at my throat. The oath had followed me. Even death hadn't freed me. I sank onto the bed, heart pounding, as a terrible realization washed over me. I hadn't escaped my fate. I had only bought myself time. And whatever dark magic still tied me to Kaylin. It was far from finished with me. The marble floor of the palace's great hall gleamed beneath the light of 1,000 candles. High windows framed the night sky, the stars cold and distant. The banners of the empire's great houses hung heavy along the walls, their colors muted in the flickering glow. The air smelled of polished stone, wine, and ambition. I stood among the crowd, wrapped in a gown I barely remembered owning, my hands clenched at my sides. Around me, courtiers moved like dancers in a play, their smiles sharp as blades, their words dripping with hidden meaning. The emperor's reception was a battlefield. Only the weapons here were glances and promises. The emperor himself sat on the dais at the far end of the hall, a shadowed figure on a gilded chair. His eyes, dark, watchful, missed nothing. He spoke little, but when he did, nobles leaned in, eager for favor. This was where the game began, where alliances were whispered, where marriages were arranged, where futures were decided, and where I would shape my own. I kept my expression composed, but inside, I burned with the weight of knowledge. I knew how so many of these people would fall, to war, to betrayal, to the very ambitions they fed tonight. And Kalen, I knew how he would rise and how he would break me. I felt him before I saw him. Lyra, came the low voice at my side. I turned, heart pounding, to find him standing there. Kalen, heir of House Vorus, the boy I once adored. But tonight he wore a man's mask, his hair tamed, his tunic embroidered with his house's sigil, a silver wolf. His smile was polite, measured. His gray eyes held no warmth. "You've changed, Lyra," he said softly. I forced a smile of my own, as brittle as glass. "You don't know me at all." His gaze flickered, surprise perhaps or something deeper, but before he could answer, the emperor's voice boomed across the hall. Tonight, the emperor declared, "We honor the strength of our houses and the bonds that hold our empire together. And soon we will strengthen those bonds with new unions that will ensure peace and prosperity." There it was. The first move in his game. The emperor didn't speak of unions lightly. His words were as binding as any oath. I could feel the tension ripple through the hall, as nobles weighed their options, their rivals, their daughters and sons. Kalen's lips curved into something like a smirk. "The game begins. It never ended," I murmured. He tilted his head, studying me. "You speak as if you've played it before." If only he knew. I turned away, letting my gaze drift over the room, pretending indifference. I couldn't let him see what boiled beneath the surface. The anger, the sorrow, the fear. Later, when the hall began to empty and the air grew heavy with wine and fatigue, I slipped out into the palace gardens. The night air was cool, scented with jasmine. The paths glowed faintly in the moonlight, and for a moment I allowed myself to breathe. "Lyra?" I turned to see Saren approaching, his blonde hair ruffled by the breeze, his eyes warm and troubled. He wore no mask, no polished smile. Just concern, plain and honest. "I was looking for you," he said. "You disappeared." I hesitated. I needed air. He stopped beside me, silent for a moment, as if choosing his words with care. "Something's wrong. I can see it. You've been different since that day in the yard." I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "Nothing's wrong, Lyra." His voice softened. "Don't lie to me. Please." My heart ached. I wanted to tell him everything, about the other life, the betrayal, the blood oath. But how could I? He wouldn't believe me. He couldn't. "I'm just tired," I said instead. "This place, this court, it wears on me." He studied me in the moonlight. "You were always strong. But now you're carrying something I can't see. Let me help." And gods, how I wanted to let him. I couldn't drag him into this. "Not yet. You already have," I said quietly. "You listened." His smile was small, but real. "Always." As we stood there in the garden, I let my gaze drift back toward the palace, toward the windows that glowed with candlelight and secrets. I thought of the emperor on his throne, of Kalen with his cold smile, of the nobles weaving their traps. What irony! I, Who knew how so many of them would fall? Could only wonder if I could stop it, or if fate, like blood oaths, could never truly be broken. The forest at night was a world apart. The palace, with its stone and steel, seemed like a distant dream. Here, beneath the canopy of ancient trees, the air was thick with the scent of pine, damp earth, and something older, magic. Marin's hut was hidden deep within the woods, its walls crooked and blackened by age, the roof sagging beneath moss and vine. But inside, the air pulsed with quiet power. The scent of burnt herbs mingled with ash, and the soft glow of oil lamps cast strange shadows on the walls, where symbols of protection and binding had been carved long ago. Marin herself sat cross-legged near the hearth, her silver hair falling loose over her shoulders, her lined face calm and watchful. Her eyes, pale blue, sharp as winter ice, fixed on me as I paced before her. "You said you needed answers," she reminded me softly. "Then be still, child, and listen." I stopped, fists clenched at my sides, heart hammering. The truth. That's what I'd come for. The truth I'd been too afraid to face. Marin reached for a small knife and pricked her finger, letting a single drop of blood fall into the bowl between us. The liquid inside shimmered, dark and restless. "You carry a blood oath," she said. "That much I sensed the moment you entered. But it is no ordinary bond." "I know," I whispered. "I died with it. And now, even in this life, I bear its scars." Her gaze softened, almost sad. The mark of such an oath does not bind the body, it binds the soul, and a soul carries its burdens, no matter how many times it is reborn. The room seemed to close in on me, the air too heavy, too tight. My fingers touched the faint scars over my heart, as if to reassure myself they were real. I thought the oath was to him. My voice cracked. "To Kaelin." Marin shook her head. "No, Lyra. The magic that binds you runs deeper, stronger. It was not Kaelin who claimed your blood. It was the Emperor." The words struck like a blade. I staggered back, breath catching in my throat. "No. That can't be." "I'm sorry," she said gently, "but it is so. The Emperor's bloodline has long used such oaths to ensure loyalty. Your family's ancient line, your mother's heritage, it made you the perfect vessel." I sank to my knees, the floor hard beneath me, my mind racing. The Emperor. All this time, I had hated Kaelin, feared him, blamed him. But the true chain around my neck had been forged by another's hand. I thought of his eyes, dark and endless, watching from his throne. The way he spoke of unity and peace, while weaving nets of power and control. "He used me," I whispered. "He used us both." Marin nodded. "And he will again, unless you find a way to break the bond." I closed my eyes, the weight of it crushing me. All this time, I'd thought I could change the future by focusing on Kaelin, on the choices I made with him. But the strings ran higher, and the puppet master still waited, patient, hidden. Outside, I stumbled into the night, needing air, needing distance. The wind tore at my cloak as I reached the palace walls. The stone was cold beneath my hands, grounding me as my thoughts threatened to spiral. I don't control this. I never did. I had returned from death thinking I could rewrite fate. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. A faint sound made me stiffen, the scrape of boots on stone. I turned, heart leaping to my throat, to see Kaelin stepping from the shadows. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with questions. "How long have you been there?" I demanded, too sharply. "Long enough," he said, voice low, "long enough to know you're hiding something. And that whatever you seek in these woods, it's dangerous." I drew my cloak tighter around me, forcing calm I didn't feel. "You know nothing about what I seek." His gaze held mine, steady, relentless. "Then tell me. Let me help you." "Help?" The word felt bitter on my tongue. I couldn't trust him. Not now. Not with this. "There's nothing you can do," I said, and before he could answer, I turned and fled into the night, the wind swallowing his call after me. And for the first time, fear truly gripped me. Because I realized I was no longer moving pieces on a board. I was one of them, and the game was far greater than I had ever understood. The terrace overlooked a world still caught between night and day. Pale pink and gold streaked the sky, chasing away the last shadows of the night. Below, the grounds of the palace lay silent, wrapped in a low-lying mist that blurred the edges of the world. The stone beneath my palms was cool, damp with morning dew, and for a moment, I let myself breathe in the clean air, as if it could wash away the weight in my chest. Lyra. His voice was soft, but sure. I didn't need to turn to know it was Saren. I felt his presence, steady and warm, the one constant in a world that seemed to shift beneath my feet. I didn't speak. I didn't trust myself to. Saren stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him in the morning chill. "I don't know what you're fighting," he said quietly, "but I'll fight it with you, whatever it is. You don't have to carry it alone." I closed my eyes, his words cutting deeper than any blade. Gods, how I wanted to believe him. To let him in. But how could I, when the truth would only drag him into the same storm that threatened to drown me? "You don't understand," I said, my voice rough. "This isn't a battle you can fight." "Then let me stand beside you anyway." His hand brushed mine, a brief touch, hesitant, but real. "I don't need to understand everything to care." I drew in a shaky breath, torn between gratitude and fear. "You deserve better than this." "Let me decide what I deserve," he said, and his smile, small, sad, undid me a little more. Later that day, I made my way to the hidden archives beneath the temple, a place few dared to go, where the Empire kept the records too dangerous to burn, too shameful to share. The air down there was heavy with the scent of damp stone and old paper. Dust coated the shelves, and every step I took sent echoes through the vaulted chamber. I searched until my fingers found what I had come for. A small leather-bound book, its cover worn smooth by time. My mother's journal. My hands shook as I opened it, the familiar script blurring as my eyes burned with unshed tears. I turned the pages, devouring her words. She wrote of duty, of fear, of a bloodline cursed to serve the throne. Our blood binds us. Not by choice, but by ancient promise. We are vessels, our strength theirs to command. Every line felt like a chain tightening around my heart. She had known. She had lived with this truth, and never once did she speak of it to me. Or perhaps she had tried, in her own way, and I had been too young, too blind to see. I closed the book, pressing it to my chest, as if I could draw courage from the memory of her. When the summons came, I wasn't surprised. The Emperor wasted no time. The audience chamber was empty but for him and his guards, silent and watchful at the edges of the room. The morning light slanted through high windows, casting long shadows across the floor. He sat on his throne as if it were a natural extension of himself. Poised, patient, dangerous. "Lyra," he said, his tone smooth, almost kind. "You've been quiet of late." I dropped into a bow, masking my turmoil. "Your Majesty." He studied me, dark eyes sharp beneath heavy brows. "Your mother served this throne with loyalty, even when it cost her dearly. I hope you will do the same." The words were soft. The threat beneath them was not. I forced a smile, the kind a court expected. "I live to serve, Your Majesty." A lie, bitter on my tongue, but necessary. "For now?" His lips curved, pleased, or perhaps amused. "Good. Because soon there will be a place for you at my side. A bond to ensure your loyalty. A bond written in blood." My heart stilled. The new oath. He meant to bind me again, to seal my fate more tightly than before. I bowed again, retreating as quickly as I dared, my mind racing. I had returned from death to break my chains. But the Emperor had no intention of letting me go free. And time was running out. The chamber beneath the palace was colder than I remembered. The black marble of the floor seemed to drink in the light of my lantern, the symbols carved into it dull and lifeless. The scent of old blood lingered, mingling with the chill that seeped into my bones. My breath came in shallow gasps as I knelt at the center of the room, the circle of ancient runes beneath me. I drew my dagger, the blade catching what little light there was and sliced across my palm. Blood welled up, dark and hot, and dripped onto the stone. The symbols pulsed, faintly at first, then stronger as if waking from a long slumber. Please, I thought, pressing my hand to the marble. Let this be enough. Let me break free. But the magic resisted. The bond was too deep, too old. The Emperor's hold on me was written into my very soul. I could feel it, a chain of fire and ice wrapped tight around my heart. You shouldn't be here. The voice cut through the silence like a blade. I froze. Kalen stood at the edge of the chamber, his face hidden in shadow, his voice low but steady. He stepped forward, the light revealing the conflict in his eyes. Gray, storm-dark, filled with things I didn't want to see. You're following me now? My voice shook with fury and despair. Is that what it's come to? I followed because I knew you'd try something reckless, he said, his gaze flicking to the blood on the floor. And I was right. Don't pretend you care. I rose, fists clenched, the taste of betrayal bitter on my tongue. You lied. You always lied. He flinched, just barely. I didn't lie. Not about what mattered. Then, what was it? I demanded, stepping toward him. Was it duty? Orders? When you put that blade through me, Kalen, was that the truth? His jaw tightened. I was trying to save you. The words stopped me. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt, the weight of them too much. Save me? I echoed, disbelief sharp in my voice. By killing me? You don't understand. No, I cut in. I understand too well. You were his creature. Just as I was his pawn, he took another step closer. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? My voice rose, raw. Tell me. Tell me why I should believe anything you say. For a heartbeat, I thought he might. That he would lay bare the truth I'd chased through 2 lives. But then his gaze hardened, the mask slipping back into place. I can't, he said quietly. Not here, not now. And in that moment, I saw it. The way he stood, the way his hand hovered near the hilt of his sword. He wasn't here for me. Not really. He was here for the Emperor. Whether by command or by choice, he still served the man who sought to bind me again. My heart broke a little more. I won't let him have me, I said, backing away, the magic at my feet forgotten. Not this time. Kalen reached out, but I was already turning, already running, the echoes of my footsteps loud in the cavernous space. The night air struck me like a slap as I emerged onto the tower's balcony. The city below glittered with 1,000 lights, the wind tearing at my cloak, cold and merciless. I clung to the stone ledge, breathless, desperate. Lyra. I turned to see Saren racing up the stairs, his hair wild, his face pale with worry. Relief flooded me at the sight of him. Come on, he said, reaching for my hand. We have to go. Now, I hesitated, glancing back once, just once, to see Kalen appear at the top of the steps, his expression unreadable. And then I fled, with Saren at my side, his grip firm and sure. For the first time I felt it, trust, real and solid, the kind that didn't ask for anything in return. The ruins of the old temple rose out of the grass like the bones of some ancient beast. Crumbled columns reached toward the sky, broken and weathered by time. Moonlight spilled across the cracked stone floor, painting everything in silver and shadow. The air smelled of wildflowers and damp earth, a reminder that even in ruin, life endured. I stood among the remains, trying to steady my breath, my thoughts. The wind whispered through the empty arches, carrying with it the weight of too many truths. Saren watched me from a few paces away, his face pale in the moonlight, his expression torn between worry and resolve. There's something I have to tell you, he said at last, his voice quiet but firm. I turned to him, exhaustion pulling at my limbs. More secrets, Saren. I don't know how many more I can bear. This isn't just a secret, he said. It's who I am. He stepped closer, the breeze tugging at his cloak. My mother was a servant in the imperial court. My father, is the Emperor. The words struck like a thunderclap, though part of me had already suspected. The way he moved through the court, the wary glances nobles cast his way. The pieces fit together now. "You're his son," I whispered. "His bastard," Saren said bitterly. "Nothing more. He never claimed me, never wanted me. But I see him for what he is, Lyra. I've seen it all my life. That's why I've tried to protect you. Because I know what he does to those he binds." My heart ached at the raw honesty in his eyes. He hadn't chosen his bloodline, but he'd chosen who he would be. That night, sleep claimed me at last, but brought no peace. I dreamed of the throne room, vast and cold, draped in shadow. The air thick with smoke, the walls fading into darkness. The Emperor's silhouette loomed on the dais, his eyes twin embers in the gloom. And at his feet, me, bound, powerless, a puppet of his will. And Kalen standing before me, sword drawn, his face a mask of sorrow and steel. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice was the same as on that night. "It's the only way to save you." His blade flashed, and I felt again the cold kiss of steel, the warmth of my blood. I woke with a cry, the temple ruins around me still and silent, my chest heaving. A figure stepped from the shadows. Kalen. His hair was tousled by the wind, his face drawn, weary, but his eyes, God's, his eyes, held a depth I hadn't seen before. Regret, pain, hope. "Lyra," he said softly, "let me protect you this time, please." I rose slowly, my heart pounding. "Why? So you can finish what you started? So you can put the blade in my heart again?" "No," he said, taking a step closer. "That wasn't what you thought. I killed you because I had to, because the Emperor would have taken your power, used you to crush everyone who stood against him. I chose the lesser evil. I chose to give you peace, before he could turn you into a monster." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "You took everything from me. I tried to save what I could," he said, voice breaking. "I failed. But I won't fail again. And God's help me, part of me wanted to believe him. The part that still remembered his laughter, his touch, his promises. But another part, the part that had learned, the part that had bled, knew better. "I can't trust you," I said. "Not now." His face fell, but he nodded. "Then I'll earn it." As he faded back into the shadows, I felt the tear inside me widen, heart torn between the boy I had loved and the man who had saved me in the only way he knew. And beside me, Saren stood, silent, steady. The one who had never wavered, the one I should trust. But why was it his hand I hesitated to take? The first light of dawn bled across the horizon, soft pink and gold spilling over the world like a promise. But here, beyond the palace walls, the air was heavy with more than morning. The field glistened with dew, the grass cool beneath my boots, but at its center lay a circle carved into the earth, old magic pulsing with power, symbols of binding and blood etched deep into the soil, waiting to be fed. The Emperor stood at its heart, robes dark against the pale sky, his eyes like pits of endless night. Around him, the air shimmered with the force of his will. He had come to finish what he started, to claim me as he'd always intended. Kalen stood at my right, sword drawn, face grim and resolute. Saren at my left, steady as ever, though I could feel the tension in him like a taut bowstring. Together we faced the man who had shaped and shattered our lives. "You should have submitted," the Emperor said, his voice carrying across the field like a curse. "It would have been easier for you." I stepped forward, heart pounding. "I'd rather die free than live as your puppet." His smile was thin, cruel. "Then die you shall." He raised his hands, and the magic of the circle flared to life, a wall of power rushing toward us. Kalen moved first, his blade cutting through the storm, creating a path. Saren followed, drawing on skills I'd never seen, swift and sure, deflecting the Emperor's strikes. And I reached inside, to the bond that had enslaved me, feeling its burn, its weight. This was the moment. My choice. I dropped to my knees within the circle, pressing my palms to the ground, feeling the thrum of the magic beneath. It welcomed me, recognized me, tried to bind me again. "No," I whispered. "Not this time." I called up everything I had. The strength of my blood, the will forged in betrayal, the love I'd lost and found, and I tore at the bond. It fought back, claws of fire and ice digging deep, but I kept pulling, kept ripping, until I felt something inside me break. My magic poured out of me, wild and raw, flooding the circle, burning through the symbols, unmaking them. I could feel my soul unraveling at the edges, the cost of my defiance, but I didn't stop. The Emperor screamed as his power shattered, as the ties he'd woven snapped one by one. And then, Kalen. He saw the final strike coming before I did, the Emperor's last desperate attack, a blade of pure force aimed at my heart. Kalen moved without hesitation, stepping into its path, his body the shield between me and death. This time, he said, voice soft, full of peace, "I chose you." The blow struck him, and he fell. The Emperor faltered, weakened, his magic broken. Saren seized the moment, disarming him, forcing him to his knees. It was over. The field was silent but for the wind, carrying the scent of smoke from the palace beyond, now a ruin of stone and ash. The dawn had come, but the world was changed. I knelt beside Kalen, his blood staining the grass, his breath shallow. "You should have let me take the blow," I whispered, tears finally falling. "Why, Kalen?" His lips curved in the faintest smile. "Because I never stopped loving you. Not in this life. Not in the last." And then, with the first true peace I'd seen on his face, he was gone. Saren came to my side, his hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "We'll rebuild," he said quietly. "We'll make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." I nodded, though my heart felt hollow. The bond was broken. The Emperor defeated. But the price had been so high. As the sun rose higher, burning away the last of the mist, I stood and faced the new day. Free at last, but forever changed. The council chamber of the new union bore little resemblance to the cold halls of the old empire. Where once stone and shadow had ruled, now light poured through tall windows, illuminating walls of pale stone etched with symbols of peace and renewal. The air smelled of fresh wood, parchment, and the promise of something better. I stood at the head of the table, surrounded by men and women who had once been rivals, now united by choice, not chains. There were no oaths of blood spoken here, no magic binding our wills. Only words, only trust, fragile, but ours. Saren stood at my side, his presence steady, his eyes reflecting the hope we dared to build. His hand brushed mine once, lightly, as if to remind me I wasn't alone. And I wasn't. Not anymore. But still, my heart hesitated. I wanted to give him what he deserved, my whole heart unguarded. But parts of me remained locked away, too scarred, too raw. He never asked for more than I could give, and perhaps that was why I treasured him most. Later, I found myself in the garden beyond the council hall, where the air was sweet with the scent of blooming trees and soft grass cushioned my steps. A quiet place, far from the weight of duty and decisions. Kalen's grave rested beneath a flowering cherry tree, its petals falling like snow in the gentle breeze. A simple stone marked the place, no grand monument, just his name and the symbol of his house, the silver wolf, carved small and true. I knelt there, fingers brushing the cool stone, the ache in my chest as fresh as the day I lost him. We found the letter in his things after the battle. Unread, unspoken. Until now. I unfolded the worn paper, his handwriting familiar and steady. "Lyra, if you are reading this, it means I have done what I could not before. Chosen you, above duty, above fear. I was a coward once. I let the Emperor's chains bind me as tightly as they bound you. I thought I could protect you by playing his game. I was wrong. I have loved you through 2 lives, and in both, I failed you. I hope that in this my final choice, I have given you back the freedom we both deserved. Forgive me. And live." The tears came, quiet and unstoppable. I pressed the letter to my heart, the weight of his words both breaking me and setting me free. As I rose and looked out over the garden, the breeze carrying the petals into the bright morning, I thought of everything we had lost, and everything we could build. He loved me twice, betrayed me twice, and yet, he saved me both times. And now, it was my turn to honor that sacrifice, to live, to lead, to choose, and to keep choosing every day.